Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our monthly meeting of the Cobb County Board of Zoning Appeals. As is our custom at this time, I'm going to ask Mr. Brian Johnson is here to represent all the people in Cobb County. And as is our custom, I'm going to ask us all to please stand. Mr. Johnson is going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Ladies and gentlemen, those of you that are here for the first time, let me give you a little insight on how we're going to conduct the meeting. The first thing that we will concern ourselves with today is going to be the consent agenda. These are applications that not only this board has reviewed, but our professional and our engineering staff have reviewed. And to our knowledge, there's no known opposition to any of these particular cases. So as we proceed, Mr. John Peterson, our head zoning administrator, will read these cases into the record. And as he does, and as your name is called, will identify yourself as being the applicant by raising your hand. Likewise, if you're here in opposition to any of those particular cases, if you would likewise raise your hand in opposition. And if we do have opposition, we will pull that particular case and hear in its regular numeric order. The next thing that we'll concern ourselves with is continued cases. Again, the same procedure will be the same as we will with our regular cases. Again, Mr. Peterson will read these into the record. The applicant, he or she, will identify themselves. The opposition folks will identify themselves by raising their hand. Our officer today is Miss Margie. Those of you that are going to give testimony, we're going to call you up forward. Margie will swear you in, and all testimony will be given to the podium to my right. At that time, the applicant will have a 10-minute period to make their position known to this board, and likewise and collectively, those in opposition will have a 10-minute period. And I say collectively, I want to remind you, you only have a 10-minute period. So if you have more than one speaker, be cognizant of the fact that you only have a 10-minute period. With that said, I'm going to ask Mr. Peterson if he has any special announcements. John?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman of the Board. There are two cases on today's printed agenda which have been continued and will not be heard today. First case is variance case V111, Anchor Sign Incorporated. This case was continued by the staff until the October 14th, 2020 Board of Zoning Appeals hearing. So V111 will not be heard today. Additionally, variance case V122, Jim Noble. This case was continued by the staff until the October 14th, 2020 Board of Zoning Appeals hearing. It says on the agenda November 12th, but that's incorrect. V122 is continued until the October 14th Board of Zoning Appeals variance hearing, so we're not going to hear V122 today. And the last announcement I have before we start the consent agenda is I'd like to ask everyone in today's audience, if you have a cell phone, please turn your phone on, your volume on mute, because the ringing does interfere with the broadcast and presentations. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'm ready to start the consent agenda.
Let's go right to it, John.
Thank you. Cobb County Board of Zoning Appeals, variance hearing consent agenda for September 9th, 2020. Variance case V103, Francis P. Palagrudo requests a variance to number 1, reduce the rear setback from required 25 feet to 15 feet. Number 2, reduce the side setback from required 5 feet to 2 feet adjacent to the western property line, which is for the existing and proposed patio. Number 3, reduce the front setback from required 15 feet to 11 feet as existing. And number 4, increase the maximum allowable impervious coverage from 40% to 44.88% in land lot 744 of the 17th district. The property is located on the north side of Whitestone Court, west of Atlanta Road. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, variance request number 2 is amended to 4 feet. And number 2, applicant to install 3 5-gallon Leland cypress between the western property line and the screened-in porch within 30 days of completion of the porch. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V103? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Variance case V112, Robert J. Roberts requests a variance to increase the maximum allowable impervious surface from 35% to 38.9% in land lot 484 of the 16th District. The property is located on the northern side of Bryant Point Drive and the western side of Bryant Lane. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Stormwater management comments. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V112? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Variance case V113, Teresa Eldridge and Clyde Eldridge request a variance to reduce the front setback from required 35 feet to 25 feet in land lots 258 and 259 of the 16th District. The property is located at the northern terminus of Whetstone Court, north of Norsworthy Way. Staff recommends approval. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V113? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Variance case V115, Mark Kowalski requests a variance to allow an accessory structure or accessory structures, which are proposed pool, decking, and equipment, and proposed 629 square foot cabana to the side of the principal building in land lot 202 of the 20th District. The property is accessed by an easement per a prior variance from the north side of Pine Mountain Road, north of Cobblewood Trail. Staff recommends approval. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V115? No. Let the record show there's no one opposed. Variance case V116, Antonio Sedarius requests a variance to number one, reduce the side setback from required 10 feet to 6.4 feet for an existing condition adjacent to the eastern property line. Number two, reduce the rear setback from required 30 feet to 17.8 feet, which is existing. Three, allow parking and or maneuvering of vehicles on a non-hardened and treated surface, which is existing gravel. And number four, increase the maximum allowable fence height from 6 feet to 8.5 feet to 8.5 feet on the sides and 12.5 feet in the rear in land lot 826 of the 16th District. The property is located at the northern terminus of Old Hunter's Trace and on the south side of Johnson's Ferry Road. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Number one, development inspections comments. And number two, email from Mr. Brian McDaniel dated September 6, 2020. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V116? No. Let the record show there's none opposed. Variance case V117, Sherry L. Taylor and Richard B. Taylor request a variance to reduce the required setbacks for an accessory structure over 1,000 square feet for a proposed, for a proposed 1,024 square foot garage from required 100 feet to 25 feet adjacent to the western property line and to 62 feet to the rear property line in land lot 131 of the 20th District. The property is located on the north side of Ben King Road, west of McClellan Parkway. Staff recommends approval, subject to stormwater management comments. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V117? No. Let the record show there's no one opposed. Variance case V118, Valley Signs and Surveys, request a variance to increase the maximum allowable area of a wall sign from 49 square feet to 120 square feet in land lot 978 of the 17th District. The property is located on the west side of Riverwood Parkway, north of Cumberland Parkway, and south of Cobb Parkway. Staff recommends approval. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V118? No. Let the record show there's no one opposed. Variance case V119, Gary Spinks requests a variance to reduce the rear setback from required 40 feet to 34 feet in land lots 1264 and 1265 of the 16th District. The property is located on the south side of River Ridge Chase, west of Paper Mill Road. Staff recommends approval. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V119? No. Let the record show there's no one opposed. Variance case V120, Marcia Dalton requests a variance to number one, allow an accessory structure, which is an existing approximately 792 square foot garage to the side of the principal building, and number two, reduce the required setback for an accessory structure over 650 square feet for an existing approximately 792 square foot garage from 100 feet to 18 feet adjacent to the eastern property line and to 48 feet to the northern property line in land lot 164 of the 1st District. The property is located on the north side of Timber Ridge Road, east of Little Willio Road. Staff recommends approval. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V120? We have one person opposed to V120, Mr. Chairman, so we'll pull that one off and put it in its regular place.
Very good.
Okay. So V120 is off consent agenda. Variance case V121, Clinton Mosley requests a variance to increase the maximum allowable area of a wall sign from 49 square feet to 184.23 square feet in land lots 13 and 14 of the First District. The property is located on the south side of Johnson Ferry Road, east of Princeton Walk, and on the west side of Woodlawn Parkway. Staff recommends approval. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V121? Let the record show no one opposed. Variance case V123, Ozone Recreation, requests a variance to increase the maximum allowable area of a wall sign from 49 square feet to 160 square feet in land lots 577, 578, 647, and 648 of the 16th District. The property is located at the northern terminus of Cobb Place Lane, north of Cobb Place Boulevard, and on the west side of Interstate 75. Staff recommends approval. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V123? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Variance case V124, Jennifer Wolf for Piedmont Ortho Atlanta, requests a variance to increase the maximum total sign area allowed per freestanding sign from 49 square feet to 69.21 square feet in land lots 788 and 841 of the 19th District. The property is located on the southeastern corner of East-West Connector and Marathon Circle, north of Traymore Point Parkway. Staff recommends approval. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V124? Let the record show there's no one opposed. V125, Douglas A. Roberts requests a variance to number 1, allow an accessory structure, which is an existing approximately 200 square foot awning to be located to the front of the principal building. Number 2, allow parking and/or maneuvering on a non-hardened and treated surface, which is gravel. Number 3, reduce the required setbacks for an accessory structure over 650 square feet for a proposed approximately 1,024 square foot garage from 100 feet to 85 feet adjacent to the eastern property line to 75 feet adjacent to the southern property line and to 85 feet to the western property line. And variance request number 4 is to allow an accessory structure, a proposed garage, to be to the side of the primary structure in land lot 574 of the 19th District. The property is located on the west side of Hopkins Road, north of Reese Road. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, stormwater management comments. Number 2, Department of Transportation comments. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V125? No. Let the record show no one opposed. And lastly, variance case V127, Grace Marietta Incorporated, requests a variance to number 1, reduce the landscape screening buffer when abutting a residential property from required 35 feet to 0 feet along the southern property line. And number 2, reduce the front setback from required 50 feet to 36 feet, which is existing, in land lot 1058 of the 16th District. The property is located on the west side of Holt Road, south of Robinson Road. Staff recommends approval. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V127? Let the record show there's no one opposed. And that completes the consent agenda, Mr. Chairman and Board.
Okay, it's back to this board for discussions. Just a reminder, we have taken case V120 and we've put that to be heard at its regular agenda. So, do I have any comments or questions from any of board members? Cobb, do you have
I
something?
do, and I'll have Amy Diaz come up real quick. Case 125, I think there's a minor correction that needs to be made to the DOT comments. It currently says Riverview Road. Should that say Hopkins Road, Amy? And does anything else need changed?
That is correct, and that is the only thing that needs to be changed.
So just change, so on that one, we're going to change Riverview Road to Hopkins Road.
Okay.
That's my only.
I guess I'd like to confirm one other thing with John. John, we looked at some traffic comments on several cases yesterday that you said would be struck, because that Riverview is referenced in case 120, which I know we're going to hear in a minute, but those comments have been struck. Is that correct?
The traffic comments were not included in V120.
Okay.
Okay, right now it's 120, and we've changed the wording from Riverview to Hopkins Road. Is that correct? Okay, any other comments from our fellow board members? If not, I'll call the question. All those in
I don't
favor
think we did a
signify by
motion
raising.
yet, did we?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I got a little ahead of myself. I'll entertain a motion at this time.
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as revised.
I've got a motion, I've got a second. Now I'll go into my little spiel. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're here for a vote. All those in favor signify by raising your hands, and it's a 5-0 vote. There's nobody opposed. Ladies and gentlemen, those of you that are on the consent agenda, your business is complete with us for today. So we'd ask you to leave. If you do leave, please leave quietly. And let me remind everybody, because of COVID-19, we're going to take a 5-minute break. How our staff can notify everybody by email, either those that were on the consent agenda or those that are on the regular agenda, to start either leaving the building or bringing them into the building. Again, this is all related to COVID-19. So at this time, we're going to go to a musical break. Cornelius, is that correct? Let's go. Da 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 da. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Again, welcome back to our monthly meeting of the Cobb County Board of Zoning Appeals. Now, at this time, we have done all our email work. We've brought everybody in and out of the building, so we're ready to proceed. Mr. Peterson, I believe the first regular case is 109, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, John, let's go with you. Let's read it in.
Okay. Variance case V109, Sebastian S. Lopez requests a variance to reduce the setbacks for an accessory structure over 650 square feet for an approximately 950 square foot building, required 100 feet to 1 foot adjacent to the northeastern property line, 3 feet adjacent to the southeastern property line, and 40 feet adjacent to the southwestern property line in land lot 351 of the 17th district. The property is located on the southeast side of Miller Avenue, east of Old Concord Road. Is the applicant present? Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V109? No.
Again, for the record, is the applicant here for case V109? All right, John, hearing and not seeing anybody, I'm going to turn it back over to you, Mr. Peterson.
What we can do is put this case on hold for a few minutes, Mr. Chairman, try to call him up and move on to
All
the
right.
next case.
Ms. Williams represents the district, so let me talk to Ms. Williams. Ms. Williams, do you have a comment on this?
I think I'm going to hold it, John, instead of trying to wait
Okay.
somebody get up. There is a language problem that we might have to deal with, so I'm going to make a motion that we hold it for 30 days.
Got a motion, do I have a second? I have a second. No other comments, call for the vote. All signify by raising your hands. Okay, it's going to be a 5-0 vote to hold this case for 30 days till our next scheduled meeting. Okay, John, let's go to our next one, please.
Yes, sir. Variance case V110, Deborah Adkins requests a variance to increase the maximum allowable area of a wall sign from 49 square feet to 205.6 square feet in land lot 901 of the 16th district. The property is located on the northwest corner of Johnson's Ferry Place and Johnson's Ferry Road. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V110? Let the record show there's one person opposed. Would the applicant and in any opposition please come forward to be sworn in?
Good afternoon, Board.
All right, sir, before we get started, for the purpose of the record, if you would, please give us your name.
My name is Matt Matthews. I'm the owner of High Stakes Creative. We are the sign contractor.
Okay, Matt, go right ahead, sir.
A little about me. I've been in the sign industry for 24 years. I've owned High Stakes since 2007. We just celebrated our 13th anniversary. We're a small company, 5 employees, myself included. We specialize in the design, production, and installation of branding, signage, and graphics. In my 13 years of business, you never see me stand here before. The reason for that is we like to follow the rules. We understand the importance of codes and rules, and we appreciate that there are mechanisms in place that keep the playing field even. We also understand that there need to be avenues where exceptions can be made, and we think that we have one here today. A little history on this job, this case. We began working with Deborah Adkins in Atlanta Mani Spa a couple years ago. Over the course of that time, we experienced countless art revisions, changes in the key contact with her staff, starting and stopping that seemed to have no rhyme or reason. At some point along the way, I was ready to kind of give up on this client. But as a business owner, I know that my time is my greatest asset. And I knew that if the approval was around the corner, we kind of needed to see that through. Our industry, like many others, is extremely competitive, and I didn't want some other sign shop to swoop in and come in and take advantage of the hard work that we had done to that point. When we finally got our approval, we began to move forward, and just so you understand a little bit about our systems and protocols, once we get that approval, we began filing the permit paperwork and commence construction on the signage at the same time. Production of that kind of signage typically takes 3 to 4 weeks, and some municipalities will take as long to approve a permit. In that case, putting them consecutively will take about a couple months, and most small business owners don't have the time or unwilling to make the time to wait 2 months for a sign after they've gone through the design process. Since most clients aren't willing to wait and our industry is so competitive, we see our strategy as a calculated one in that our designs always fall within code. We've never been denied a permit for any sign that we've ever applied for. We've never had to go through a variance process. So you can imagine our shock when we saw that the code had changed so drastically. We tried to tweak our designs to fit the new code, but once we realized how the allowance had been reduced so dramatically, we realized there was no way we were going to fit our square peg in that round hole. So after 2 permit denials, we were told that we could petition this board for a variance, and that many sign shops were doing that, and it potentially wasn't a big deal. We were also told that due to COVID, it may be a little while before we got here. I don't think any of us could have predicted the state of affairs that COVID had put us in, our economy, the general health of our nation the way it is. A large part of my business is installing signage and graphics in the high-rises in Buckhead and in downtown Atlanta. It's eerie to look out those windows and see the parking decks empty. I was just there this week in one building, and most of the floors in the Terminus building in Buckhead are empty. There's a few people working there. Certainly a fraction of 1% of the staff that could be there is there. Working from home is the norm. PPP loans are running out. The CDC just implemented a eviction moratorium this week. We all know people that are struggling right now, and now's not the time to strangle a business's opportunity to attract customers. My business is down this year. My client's business is down significantly. They offer services that are not necessary to some people. So many of their clients are holding off with a wait-and-see kind of attitude. I don't know what kind of financial assistance they're getting from the government. It's probably not much given their field of work. At some point, they will have to begin laying off staff, and those are real people in the community with families and kids and financial obligations that are just trying to live their lives as normally as they can. Now more than ever, a business must present itself in a clear, concise, and attractive way to communicate to the public effectively. Limitations on signage that fall so short of neighboring standards only hinder that communication. Over time, a business that communicates poorly can't afford to be in business any longer. I understand there's opposition to our case. I was advised to discuss our case with a few people, including Jill Flam of the East Cobb Civic Association. I spoke with Ms. Flam last week and had what I would characterize as a cordial conversation. However, Ms. Flam was not interested in hearing our position, nor was she interested in discussing possible options to achieve an agreeable outcome for all parties. It seemed as if her mind was made up long ago. Ms. Flam mentioned that she represented the 9,000 homeowners in her area. I asked her how many of those homeowners were small business owners. She actually laughed. It seems like she didn't care. It seems like she's unsympathetic to the hard work that goes into being a small business owner. I don't know about her past, I don't know about yours, but I can tell you from my personal experience, my blood, sweat, tears, a bankruptcy, and a foreclosure are some of the things that go into making a small business survive. To say that I'm passionate about my business would be a severe understatement. For a local civic organization that is supposed to have the well-being of the community as their highest standard, Ms. Flam's comments during our conversation led me to believe that her tone-deaf position omits an integral part of that community. Ms. Flam will argue that our signage should not be allowed because there is no hardship, that the topography of the land and the neighboring businesses do not adversely affect my client. In fact, I challenge Ms. Flam to name one business on Johnson Ferry Road that hasn't endured some kind of hardship lately. With my limited conversation with Ms. Flam, I don't come away with the impression she should be the arbiter of what constitutes a hardship for any business. I'm aware that the window graphics on my client's building are contributing to the gross overage of the signage allowed. To get us closer to compliance, I will see that those graphics come down with the exception of the logo, the business hours, and contact information on the front door. We're talking about 2 square feet. Additionally, my client also has an existing pole sign on her property that is eligible for permitting. The structure's somewhat unsightly, but it's grandfathered in a way that would allow her to install new sign faces if she leaves the structure alone. This would probably not please the board, and it probably would not please the East Cobb Civic Association. So as a goodwill gesture, we would offer to have that sign removed so that it can no longer be used on the property. If doing so would help the board allow our permit to be granted. I understand that our signage has exceeded what the current code allows, but please also understand that oversight was by me and it was not done on purpose. Our signage fits well within the old code and the code of neighboring communities. You have my sincerest apology on not being as up-to-date as I should have been. Please help me and my client avoid further financial hardship by forcing us to alter this signage. Thank you.
Do you have anybody else wish to speak in favor of your application?
No, sir.
Okay. If you would, just have a seat, and at this time, we'll hear from the opposition. Just clarification. You said you're willing to take the pole sign down. Is that what I heard you say?
Yes, sir, that's correct. There is an existing pole sign
Right.
on the Johnson Ferry side of the building. This building sits at an intersection. We would be willing to have that sign removed.
Okay. All right, thank you. If
Thank
you'd have a seat, we'll hear from the opposition now. And again, for the purpose of the record, if you would, give us your name, and then you can start.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Jill Flam. I'm case manager as well as president of East Cobb Civic Association. This case is a result of a code complaint. The signs are already up on the building, and we have had problems with this business with regard to excess signage through the years. This is not their first code complaint. The thing that concerns us most about this case is a lack of a hardship. And I did explain to the applicant what we were looking at for a hardship, shape or topography of the land, or if that by complying with the code, you actually do harm to the neighbors. And this was not something East Cobb Civic Association made up. This is something that is according to the code. The only hardship he was able to state to me was it was going to cost him money. A hardship is what makes variances unique and also prevents variances from setting a precedent in the future. This would prevent, if there is a hardship, another business on Johnson Ferry, for example, of saying, I want the additional signage because they have it. ECCA cannot find any hardship with regard to the shape of the property, the topography of the property, both of it. They're located close to Johnson Ferry as well as Johnson Ferry Place, and they are easily seen from all those streets. They are not set far back on the lot. It is very close. Too much signage has been a problem along the Johnson Ferry corridor for many years, and here are just some of the examples of businesses that were given code violations and complied. So you never would have heard them with regard to a variance. Ameriderm, which was on a very small building on the corner of Johnson Ferry and Lower Roswell, had additional signage placed on the building. They were issued a code violation of too much signage. They had to take some of it down. Moving on down to someone that's even a little bit bigger, CVS on Johnson Ferry and Lower Roswell, at one point had signs all over their building windows, on the building, in the parking lots, flags. They were issued a code violation. They took them down. Nia the dentist put up coverings on her windows that were in violation of the code. They were completely covered. These were custom. She had them taken down and modified. Braces put signage on their awnings with regard to the phone number. They took the awning down and got rid of the phone number. And Camel Car Wash put custom signs in their second-story windows all along the top. They were issued a violation. They took those down. I don't know how many other signs were caught by permitting prior to the placing of the signs, but this is just an example of the ongoing problem that we've had. Another question might be, well, have we had any new business put up a sign on their building in compliance with this? And the answer is yes. We have had Tokyo Valentino is brand new to the community. Their sign is in compliance. I did ask the applicant if he had any proposal to reduce the signage on the building to come closer into compliance. He did offer the pole sign and then any of the poster-type signs that were in the windows. Not all of her windows are covered in posters, but there was nothing with regard to reducing what was put on the building. The applicant also states that this would be allowed under the old code. Well, the old code got changed because it is a settlement of litigation. And while it may be proposed in the future to come up with a new code, we don't know what this new code is going to look like. I imagine it will have to be looked at from legal to make sure that the settlement of litigation would not be affected by what is ever proposed. We don't know when it will come forward, as well as what it will ultimately end up looking like once it goes before the Board of Commissioners and has two public hearings. ECCA recommends denial of this application. Without a hardship to distinguish this property from any other Johnson Ferry or any other property in the county, there is nothing to prevent another business from putting up signage in violation of the code, applying a variance, and then seeking this case as a reason that they should be allowed to keep their signage. We are concerned that this not get out of control prior to the changing of the code. And that's our position. Thank you so very much.
Okay, is there anybody else here wishing to speak in opposition to case V-110? Hearing and not seeing anybody come forward, it's back to this board for discussion. Mr. Brian McDaniel represents the district. So Brian, at this time, I want to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've had several conversations with Matt and Jill over the past few weeks, and those conversations have largely been instructive, and I think more recently constructive in terms of finding our way to a potential solution. I did want to direct some comments to Jill here initially, and then Matt, I'm going to ask you to come back up for a minute. Jill, I wanted to thank you for your time and your input on the case. I think the feedback from the East Cobb Civic Association is full and legitimate and certainly worthy of serious consideration. But Matt, if you wouldn't mind coming on back up for a second, I do have a couple of questions for you, and other board members may as well. As you heard what Jill mentioned about hardships, that's one thing that the board takes very seriously in these cases. And can you frame up for us what the hardship is here so that everybody's clear?
The hardship, as I see it, is twofold. It's competition for attention with passersby on Johnson Ferry Road. This committee in the prior session, the consent session, passed through, I think it was V-121, Clinton Mosley. He's got a comparable amount of square feet that this committee seemed to be okay with.
You know, that's a really tall office building.
It's okay. I looked it up while we were sitting there, and it looked like a shopping center. This is a freestanding building that's on its own property. They're at an intersection. They would generally be granted two faces to get that calculation.
Yeah, you're right. That's. I'm sorry. That was Leal, which will be virtually across the street from this one.
So we're not asking for anything special. We're not asking for special consideration for an excess amount of signage. In fact, I think that the 205 205 number that was stated. I think that's a little greater than where we're actually at. I think we're under 200. The hardship is that this new policy, it's my interpretation that it was written quickly and without enough thought, and I heard one of the board members say earlier that there's an increasing amount of applicants for this variance. It puts a hardship on the small business owner, it puts a hardship on the sign company. It costs us more money to go forward on things that used to be normal. Just to waste your time on something that is mundane.
Okay. Did you understand that the window signage was included in the wall sign area calculation?
I did,
Okay.
and if I didn't make that clear in my presentation.
Well, I know you did in terms of, this recommendation on how we might move forward. I wasn't sure going in if you really understood that was
The window
case.
signage was part of her building prior to my relationship with her. She has another company that fulfills that need for her. I'm not associated with that. I have made it clear that those have to come down, and she has agreed to be in compliance with that.
Okay. Let me just say that the feedback I've gotten, and I have heard from a few folks on your case, and that is just that there's too much overall signage at the property. And as I've mentioned to Matt and Jill, and then we talked about what you suggested at our work session yesterday, I don't think this has to be an all-or-nothing kind of case. And so what I want to propose, and I know I want to let the other board members ask questions of you here before we're done, but that's to allow the signage on the brick part of the building, but reduce and/or remove most of the other signage on the property. So that would specifically mean I would want to stipulate reducing the window signage to be limited to no more than 10% of the windows, including the doors, and that the existing pole sign in the front be removed. So with that said, I'll open it up to
Okay,
board
fellow
members.
members, Galt has
I'll
a
just say,
comment.
he proposed, I believe, 2 square feet of window signage, which.
Yeah, which is
probably
even less, yeah.
Even less, so I may go with that if I were you.
That's all we're asking for. Just
Okay.
enough to have just a couple square feet for basic contact information when somebody walks up to the door.
And I do like removing the pole sign.
So your suggestion was, again, they could live with 2 feet of window signage?
That is correct.
Okay.
I think
Now,
that's a,
that's it. I don't want somebody to go pull a tape measure. It's going to be small. It's going to be really small.
Yeah, okay.
No bigger than the signage on the lectern up there.
I think that's a pretty good, it's a win-win situation, and the pole sign is the key. We want that pole sign down.
It's gone.
just antiquated, it doesn't fit the neighborhood. Any other comments? Let's put it in a motion.
All right, well then, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make the following motion, and that would be move to approve the variance request in case V110, subject to staff comments and recommendations, and the additional stipulations that the window signage be limited to no more than 3 square feet? Is it 3 square feet of the window space, including doors, within the next, I'm going to say 60 days, and the existing pole sign in front be removed within the next 60 days.
Motion, do I have a second? Second, Galt. Any other comments? I think you did a fine presentation, the fact that we are involved in COVID, and we do sympathize with small business, and we're not heartless. So with that said, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by raising a hand. Okay, it's a 5-0 vote. Thank you. Have a nice day.
And when that new code gets written, somebody give me a call.
Well, they're working on it.
I'd be happy.
They're working on it. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Ms. Jill. All right, John, where am I, son?
Mr. Chairman, the opposition has left for variance case of V120, which was on consent earlier. So now they kind of understand what's going on. So if it's okay with the board, I'm going to read V120 back into the agenda, and if the board could put it on consent and approve it, that'd be
Is that
fine.
okay with you, Brian?
Yes. Approve it.
Sir, let's do it.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Now call them in.
Variance case V120, Marcia Dalton requests a variance to number 1, allow an accessory structure, an existing approximately 792 square foot garage to the side of the principal building, and number 2, reduce required setback for an accessory structure over 650 square feet for an approximately existing 792 square foot garage from 100 feet to 18 feet adjacent to the eastern property line and to 48 feet to the northern property line and land lot 164, the first district. The property is located on the north side of Timber Ridge Road, east of Little Willie Road. Staff recommends approval. Applicant is present.
Let's put it
Okay,
back,
applicant is present, so,
let's put it just back on consent.
yeah, so the motion would be to, go ahead.
I think I'm going to have an issue with this unless I hear why the applicant, or why the opposition left. What I'm concerned about is that the opposition may have been confused by the directive from this board that everybody in the consent agenda could leave. I haven't heard if the opposition just withdrew its opposition, or was confused, or why they left, or if they indicated they had to go.
Yeah, so I met with both the applicant and the quote-unquote opposition after the consent agenda was passed, and what I learned is that they just had not had a chance to meet and discuss some of the questions that they had. They took that opportunity to continue to have some dialogue and then decided that they were not going to oppose, and that's why they left.
Explanation, okay, that's why we need a motion to get it.
I'll make that motion.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, carries 5-0. And that's on the consent agenda, that's done. Okay, we're finished with that, John. We're on our last one, 114.
Yes, sir. Variance case V114, Robert Shea and Gina Ormsby request a variance to reduce the 50-foot undisturbed creek buffer to 25 feet in land lot 327 of the 20th district. The property is located on the east side of Meadow Path Drive, north of Battlefield Creek Drive. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to variance case V114? The applicant is, let the record show there's no one here opposed to variance case V114. Would the applicant please come forward to be sworn in to present their case?
Okay, sir, for the purpose of the record, before you get started, if you would, please give us your name.
Yes, my name's Robert Shea, and I'm here along with my wife Gina, and we're representing our property at 278 Meadowpath Drive.
Okay, Robert, tell us what you want.
So we submitted a variance request about a month and a half ago, and we filled out the application. We worked with Crescentview Engineering, Trey Baltz. He helped us with our plan, and I think there may have been some questions about
Is this your property that
Yes,
we're
it is.
looking?
Correct.
Okay. Well, tell us what you want. Tell us
So
what-
we're trying to do some basic improvements, including putting a pool in
Swimming
the
pool.
backyard. And our lots, the way it's shaped, it makes it difficult because the 25-foot buffer and the 50-foot buffer is curved in our yard. So we're trying to get that extra distance, 10 feet for the pool, and then some extra area for some sitting area and pavers behind the pool. So really, the 10 feet is critical. The extra space would just be for vegetation and for some seating. And that's kind of what our main objective is right here. And we realized we had the stream in the backyard, so we did bring on board Trey to help us out with that plan that we submitted along with our application.
Well, tell us who Trey is. Is he a civil
Trey
engineer?
Baltz is one of the executives with Crescentview Engineering.
Is he a civil engineer?
Yes, he is,
also?
yeah. He
Okay.
provided us
And
a-
he has stamped your,
Yes, he did.
He did.
And that was submitted along with the paperwork.
okay? Anything else you want to tell us, Robert?
Oh, I did just today talk with Trey, and he sent me a note about some additional things they could do with, including an infiltration trench, to help with any sort of rainwater that would come into the property that would be runoff. So that's something in addition to what we've already proposed, could help us with getting the variance approved.
Now, explain that a little bit clearer. It's water runoff that's coming off your house or your property?
Yeah,
It's
anything
a
that may
ditch?
as a result of this project.
And what is it going to be, a ditch or underground detention or
Yeah, he
curl?
wrote that he would, there'd be an infiltration trench with a volume equal to 1/2 rain event This is the county water quality requirement, and it's typically required for new impervious area over 5,000 feet on a new development. The new impervious area added to this site would be 1,500 square feet, and the trench will provide water quality treatment and reduce the runoff to the stream for storm events up to 1.2 inches.
Okay. All right, Carl, Robert, anything else you want to tell us?
No, sir.
All right, anybody else wish to speak either in favor or against this application of 114? Hearing and not seeing anybody, I'm going to turn it over to Fred Beloin. Fred represents the district, so Fred, if you would, please take it from here.
Okay, Robert, you can have a seat for just a minute. Let me just go ahead and bring up Carl. Okay, you can just state your name and your occupation.
Carl Carver with Cobb County Stormwater Management.
Thank you, Carl. Okay, and my concerns and my reason for asking you to come up, in our comments that we were provided by staff, we were told that typically stream buffer encroachment issues are addressed with community development and by some sort of a special buffer averaging application.
That's correct.
All right, do you know if one was filed here at all?
I do not.
Okay. And so your preference would be that the applicant also fill out such an application?
Yes.
Okay. And then, do you have any other comments or thoughts with respect to how we can go about helping this gentleman and still make sure we properly manage any stormwater considerations or concerns?
Just a couple. The proposed hatched areas on the drawings, the one on the left indicates, I just noticed this from this drawing, it's a little bit bigger drawing, indicates an area that's buffer replacement within a drainage easement. We can't have the buffer replacement in the drainage easement, because that would be an area that we, as the county maintenance on stormwater, may have to go in and disturb at some point in the future for that storm line. So we can't have it there. So currently, they're probably about 50% short of matching the buffer that they're disturbing. And it's not about how much impervious is in the buffer, it's how much is disturbed within the buffer. So it's hard to tell from their numbers, but they're somewhere probably about 50% short on the replacement for a buffer average. So if they filed an application with community development, they wouldn't meet the criteria. And I assume that's why they're proposing the stormwater water quality device that they talked about.
Okay. Can you comment on those type of devices?
Yeah, we require them a lot of times when projects are similar to this or going over the threshold of impervious surface. Their impervious surfaces, based on the overall lot coverage here, is within the code, but it would be a good thing to have that device in this case to help mitigate some of the runoff.
Okay. I got the word trench. What other language do we need to use?
You could use a flow well or a dry well. They're kind of synonymous in either way.
Anyone else with questions for Carl?
Carl, have you had an opportunity to talk to his engineer at all on this?
No,
Okay.
but I do know him.
You do, okay. And evidently, his engineer has stamped that, put his reputation on the stamp.
Yes.
So could this be, I'm a little confused, a little over my head, to be honest with you. Could this be mitigated through plan review to take care of this?
Yeah, he would have to come in for a pool permit, which would require site plan approval.
Right.
Also for the buffer averaging, if he wants to propose any buffer averaging.
And in your opinion, as an engineer, would the county be able to work with him to get this approved?
I would think so. The only other thing I would think of is possibly any of the buffer that's remaining, that it be brought up to buffer standards per the county's code, that they have some language about buffer standards. It's increased landscaping in the buffer.
So put more plants in there or
Right.
that type of thing?
Right.
Okay. Okay, that was my only question, Fred. Anybody else have any questions? Gold, do you have anything to say?
I do have a question, but not for Carl right now. Tim, could you measure how wide that buffer that exists is? Yeah. Just so that we know what we're talking about. So we've already cut well into the 50-foot buffer before we're even getting here talking about a pool. Because I assume that didn't originally have grass. And then we have another 25-foot buffer for,
Impervious.
impervious. So where's 75 feet take us to? So basically, that's the only area left to even put a pool, really.
Well, he's measuring from, I guess I can speak.
From the property line, the stream's a little bit off, so we
Yeah.
can take a few feet, but the stream may not be precise. But, there's really, nobody's even, and it's not in here, brought up about our, 75-foot buffer. So that's really where I get to a problem is there is no place in the backyard to put any true impervious surface. He doesn't even have room for much more than a small deck in that backyard.
Where's he gonna mitigate?
The flow wells or infiltration trench that he talked about would be below grade. It takes the runoff coming from the impervious surfaces and pushes it back into the ground, which is an acceptable method.
I guess my concern is a pool really a hardship?
I'm sorry.
Not really a question.
No, it's not really about a pool being a hardship. I mean, that's a lot of disturbance that we've got going on down there.
Well, I guess go back to my original question, can it be done at plan review? And you indicated it could be done with mediation there. So I'm not an engineer. When I see a stamp, my obligation is that man's putting his reputation on the line when he stamps a thing. So I'm in full agreement with what his engineer is saying, and certainly what you as an engineer are saying. So if we worked out a plan review, that's all I'm concerned with.
Yeah, well, a lot of times we will take that, they will put in little landscape drains in the impervious areas and pipe those to the flow well.
Yeah. And just by way of a comment, Frank Gibson has been doing this for years, and he's in charge of Cobb County's
Erosion control.
erosion control. And we're always been friendly with our taxpayer citizens to help them work things out. So again, I think it's a plan review. Fred, I'm back to you. I think it's back to
Thank you. I think it's a little bit of a chicken and egg sort of situation here, Mr. Chairman, in the sense that I think what we're going to have to do is to get a buffer averaging application filed. I think the plan will have to be revised to show and include certain items potentially including, but not limited to, the various matters discussed today, including trenching, including additional landscaping, including whatever else really is required by the county to bring this up to county standards. And I know it'll take a little more work with the engineering folks. I also note that we're in September right now, so we're kind of getting outside the swim season in terms of where we are. So I don't see a need to rush this one right now. I'd rather the folks go through the process of actually preparing and filing that application than we just hold this till next month. That'll be my motion unless there's any disagreement.
I have a question. Yeah, am I on? I'd like to ask John Peterson a little history on this one, if it's all right.
The Board of Zoning Appeals doesn't get these very much. I think this is the first one we've had in probably 5 or 10 years.
Yeah.
And the reason why we don't get these is because the applicants can do buffer averaging as an administrative function through our community development section. That's where you get names like Frank Gibson involved, and our director, Jessica Gwynn, can give an administrative variance to reduce the buffer from 50 feet down to 25 feet. And that could be obtained by the director if there's no net decrease in buffer area. So whatever they go into, they got to put back into the buffer. The whole reason why the applicant is here for this one is because they cannot get a one-to-one, I guess, a give back for what they're getting into. That's why they're here today. And that's why probably doing a buffer averaging application is not going to work here, because it can't be done, because that's why they're here. So they're asking it to go into the buffer for, however many feet. They're showing some type of plan in the book where they're trying to give back some type of buffer area, shown as the hatch area. As Carl said, the buffer area shown on the left side of the house wouldn't normally be counted as a buffer area because it's in a drainage easement. So they're trying to do as much as they can, but with this lot as close as it is to the creek, there's not much they can do staff-wise with this. So an administrative variance cannot be done through our director. This cannot be a staff function because it can't be a one-to-one give back is what they're getting to the buffer. That's why they're here.
John, can this be done in plan review?
This is a BZA issue. It
So-
can't be done in
so-
plan review because it would have been done already if it could have been done.
So we either need to say yes or no then, at this point,
That's correct.
rather than hold it.
You got to waive it, something we haven't typically done.
Well, as John said, we haven't seen it in 10 years.
Yeah,
We haven't
typically
seen
don't
it.
do it.
And the reason why you haven't seen it is because most times there's enough property to work it out.
Yeah.
But here, there's just not.
There's nothing there.
So I understand this can't be resolved purely as an administrative matter, and I'm going to amend my motion already because you've just told me that administrative process will be a fruitless process, a waste of everybody's time. But yet, from what I'm hearing from staff is more could be done in the plan to mitigate any possible stormwater
Well,
issues.
And as Carl said, there's more that can be done to help the buffer along with stormwater measures that may not be counted as part of his average, but it will help reduce stormwater going into the buffer, or slow it down at least.
So in that case, my motion is still going to be that we simply hold it pending getting a new plan that contains further detail and includes additional measures, including potentially some landscaping or plants, and including possibly a trench as indicated by your own engineer, in order to show that we've done more to mitigate any potential stormwater adverse impacts. I still think that's the responsible thing to do.
No other comments. I guess we want to put that in the motion then?
I-
That would be your motion.
That's my motion.
I would second it for the motion, but I do have a comment.
Sure.
Carl. The wells, do we know unless we hold it and find out from their engineers where they're going to put the wells, or?
Well, and that's something that the engineer that they have would have to work out with Carl, and Carl knows Trey, Trey knows all of us who work on staff, so they need to get together and come up with a plan.
Yeah, because that would be crucial as to where you can do your, where they're going to put it at.
Yeah, because a lot of times, because the pool area is so far back in the property, what they do is they compensate for roof water upstream. And it accounts for the same thing. Whether you treat this impervious or the impervious of the roof water, it doesn't matter. You're treating some impervious water.
Okay. All right, that answers my question, Jeff.
Yeah,
With the
and-
hold, he can show the,
Yeah, his engineer could come up with a design that suits their design, not mine, and where they want to place the dry wells or the trench or whatever. But they could put it on the plan and run it by me as far as improvement, approval.
all right.
And just to follow up with that comment, Mr. Shea, you have indicated by the letter that you read from your engineer today, your willingness to work in these directions. So I think we've probably got a pretty good compromise to hold this for 30 days, to give your engineer an opportunity to get involved with Carl and the county's engineers, and I think this could be worked out at that time. And then you can bring us back a definite plan next month that we can say yes or no to. Is that kind of follow through with Fred? Okay, I've got a
I
motion.
have one
comment?
question for John. John, why didn't we mention the 75-foot buffer as a variance as well?
Because that's something that staff can do. This is for the stream buffer variance.
Right. Okay, but we have the 75-foot buffer for impervious. They need a variance on that,
Well,
don't they?
that's worked out through another process.
Okay.
It's not a process this board's going to decide on.
All right, the last word. Brian, you have to comment.
No, I'm good.
You sure? You sure? Brian's talked all day long. He's talked out today. I've got a motion. I've got a second. I got a vote. All in favor signify by raising those blessed hands. We were going to be 5-0. Mr. Shea, we're going to hold you up for a month, continue this, and before you go, get his card, and switch cards and get ready. We'll take care of you next month. Where am I, John Peterson?
We're complete.
I'm complete. With that, ladies and gentlemen, let me just, got a couple of house cleanings. I need a motion and approval for minutes from the August the 12th and September the 8th.
I will make a motion to approve.
Judy, you second on that? Okay, all in favor? All in favor? All in favor, raise your hand. That's a 5-0 vote.
Sure I do.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's still, we're still under a COVID watch, and just remember, take care of yourself and take care of your neighbor. Be careful. With that said, we're done, Cornelius. Jupiter jump, the kids get in, jump up and down. He used to